Sexing baby panther chameleons right out of the egg is a challenge, but it's something that we need to know in the chameleon community. Hello, my name is Bill Strand. I'm the host of the Chameleon Academy, and today we're going to teach you how to sex hatchling panther chameleons. Now, part of the Chameleon Academy's outreach is to create community, and how better to do that than to bring the community onto the video. To that end, I'm bringing on Carolyn from Frams Chams Chameleon Breeders. She sexes baby panther chameleons all the time, and so who better to bring on to show you how she does the sexing of the baby panther chameleons. This video is going to be in two parts. The first is going to be an interview with Carolyn where we talk about sexing panther chameleons and various breeding topics. And then on the second half, we're going to bring up some pictures of some baby panther chameleons, and she's going to describe in detail the steps she goes to sex the hatchling panther chameleons. And so, thank you for joining us. I'm going to roll the interview. Hello, Chameleon Wranglers. This is your host, Bill Strand. And today we are going to be addressing a common problem in the chameleon world, and that is sexing baby panther chameleons. With me here today is Carolyn Laframboise, and she is someone who deals with sexing panther chameleons on a daily basis. Carolyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Carolyn is with Frams Chams, who many of you are familiar with. And let's start off by getting a background as to how Frams Chams came to be.
All right. So my husband and I, Brian, have always been animal lovers. Of course, like most of the people that are probably listening. My husband's had reptiles since he was young, and my first experience with reptiles was a bearded dragon that we had gotten together, and I absolutely fell in love with him. His name was Spike. He belonged to our kids, and we just loved him, and I go down rabbit holes and start researching and looking at different animals, and I have always been fascinated by chameleons. So we started looking and thought we were just going to get one male, and ended up getting a pair instead. And set up two gorgeous cages. We had glass enclosures to begin with. I mean, we did everything that probably we've learned, for beginners, that might have been a little bit more of an advanced step, but we went with it anyway. We were successful and started breeding and had really great luck, and ended up, dealing with kind of some little pet stores in our area, and then decided, why don't we just love it. It's something he and I do together. It's a hobby that we have together. So when we're downstairs doing the work, it doesn't seem so much like work because we're both taking an interest. So over the last few years, we've gotten a lot bigger. We've been doing it on a kind of a bigger scale, and it's been treating us really well. And we're excited for the future and changes for us. Maybe even becoming bigger than we are right now, not sure. But we just are loving every minute of it.
That sounds exciting, and I do wish you the best with that. What species and locales do you work with?
So mostly panther chameleons. That would probably be the biggest, obviously, locale that we work with. But we have worked in the past with Jackson's chameleons. We've had both Xanthes and the Machacos Hills, the rainbow chameleons, which I just absolutely adore. We have a Meller's chameleon who we love. We have had a Parsons chameleon. But most of the chameleons that we're breeding and selling to customers are the panther chameleons.
Okay. How many panther chameleons would you say you look at to try to tell their gender in a year?
So this is something that I do almost on a daily basis, if not a couple times a week. I like to do it as they come out of the egg. I find that seems to be the easiest time to do it. obviously when they get older and start showing colors, which I know we'll talk about later, but that is easy. But oh my goodness, I can't even put a number on it, but it's definitely in the upper hundreds, even thousands.
All right, so you're pretty experienced in this.
I would say so.
All right, Carolyn, so let's get right into how do we sex a baby panther chameleon? And let's start off with a hatchling.
All right, so I tend to find right out of the egg is one of the easiest times to do it for myself. I like to, what you need, and a lot of people come to us asking for advice on, is this a boy? Is this a girl? And what you really need to do is be looking at your chameleon sideways with the tail as straight out as you can possibly have it. I like to put my babies on like a bamboo skewer. So they're kind of walking along. And you'll see from the pictures that we're going to show, a lot of times I try to have light in behind the chameleon. So the chameleon's more in the shadow, but I can see the outline of the tail. And that's really what I'm looking at. At the base of the tail, kind of right around the cloaca. So right there with a male, there's going to be a very slight bulge, which indicates that his hemipenes are inside. And, you can see that there. With a female, the tails tend to be a lot skinnier from the cloaca on. It's almost like a straight line, where the male, you'll see this little bump and then a straight line out to the tip of the tail. So that's mainly what I'm looking for. Over the years, I have noticed personally that I can see slight color differences in males and females. For a person that only has one clutch or is just beginning, that's going to be a lot harder to use as kind of something. I would say that would be a little bit more experience needed for that, but that's usually what I'm looking for. Okay.
Now, you said that you liked to sex them right out of the egg. What happens to obscure the sexing, and how soon does that start happening?
So what I find is at about 2 months, the females go through a period where their tail will thicken up as well. And it just seems to be something that happens. Their tail tends to get a little thicker. It's a little harder to use the thickness of the tail as an indicator. I'm always trying to look for the bulge. However, there are definitely chameleons where a bulge is more pronounced and it's easier to use. But there will always be some chameleons where that bulge is not as pronounced, and you really have to you start to notice very slight differences in the chameleons. I definitely have to say, too, there are chameleons that come out of the egg that, the chameleons that come out of the egg, I tend to know right away. But if I let it wait about a month, there is a definite possibility that I'll have 1 or 2 chameleons that I look at that I'm not sure of. And I tend to put those in a different cage, label them really well, and I will keep looking at them every week or so, every couple of weeks. I'll kind of keep looking at them, looking for that bulge that I'd like to see. There's even sometimes that I will wait for them to color up first because I want to make sure that I'm correct.
Well, you said about 2 months they start to get obscured. That's getting very close to the 3 to 4 month mark where they're going to be going to new homes. So at what point does it start to get to be obvious again as to what gender they are?
So I would say right around the 3 month mark, many of the males will start to show colors. So that's always a telltale sign that you have a male coming. And I'm looking for, when I say colors, because females can develop colors as well. It's amazing how blue a female nosy bay can get and really kind of, confuse you. But especially in ambilobe, the males will start to develop the yellows or the reds kind of in, around their chest area. So I'm kind of looking for those colors to be an indicator, as well as a nice pronounced bulge, if you will. So that's kind of what I'm relying on. But those ones that I kind of put away in a cage that I wasn't too sure of, about that 3-month mark, the colors will tend to come in and give me a lot of help. And even 3.5 months, definitely happens at times that it takes a little bit longer for some of them.
Do you ever run into the issue that some males, when they are in the vicinity of other males, will delay their maturity and look like females?
Yeah, I definitely think that can happen. And we try as hard as we can. Like I said, we tend to sex them right out of the egg. We try to separate as much as we can. We have a lot of small cages here, so we might put them in a bin marked male, and then we'll have a bin marked female for each of our clutches. At about the 1-month mark, we like to take those males out, definitely, and put them into individual cages. If we haven't done it sooner, definitely at times we do that sooner if we're able to. So I do feel sometimes that there are more dominant males in a cage where they will kind of mature almost more quickly than some of the other males, which is why raising individually is a great thing to do if you can do it.
So with the coloring up, is there a point? So once they hit the 3 to 4 month part and they start coloring up, is it obvious from that point on for both male and female?
I mean, for me, I definitely think it is. There's a definite difference in colors, whereas males tend to be, in my opinion, a little bit more on the gray side. And they're starting to develop those, those secondary colors, like the reds are starting to pop, the blues are starting to pop. Whereas our females tend to seem almost a tan or a peachy color. When they're about that 3-month mark, females can get good coloration in their cheek areas. Like they'll have these bright kind of blue iridescent patches, which are just gorgeous. And like I said, at times they can kind of have some coloring too. You just have to have the experience to kind of know what is a female color and what's a male color. But for the most part, it's pretty obvious.
How long did it take you to get good at picking out these characteristics in such a small chameleon?
I want to say feeling comfortable with it took at least a year. Back in the beginning, we were definitely holding on to our chameleons quite a bit just to make sure. But like I said, when we started, we were dealing more with like local pet stores. So I felt we could hold on to them a little bit longer. Now I'm feeling pretty confident. My husband is always a great person to have a second opinion from, even though I'm definitely the person that's doing most of the sexing of the chameleons. So now I feel like I have it down. However, I always will never talk in absolutes, because it definitely happens that I will have one that confuses me. And, with our business, a lot of I think one of the glorious things about getting a chameleon at about 3 months is being able to watch that process of them coloring up. So there are definitely chameleons that we send out that are just starting that process of coloring up. And we always 100% guarantee the sex of our chameleons, which is something I would definitely, if somebody is looking for a breeder, you're going to want to make sure if you're getting one that's about 3 months that you can always go back to the breeder if a mistake has happened. It doesn't happen to us many times, but it has. And we've always worked it out with our customers, and everybody has been pretty happy with how we decide to take care of it with them.
What would you say for someone getting their first clutch of panthers, they're hatching, and they're saying, all right, I'm going to sex these? What would be the one or couple of things that most causes misidentification of sexing?
So I definitely think it's the ones that are just not as pronounced as some of the others. Like some will hatch and there will be absolutely no problem looking at it and saying, okay, that thick tail, I can see the bulge. It's obviously a male. Or super skinny tail. It's straight from the cloaca out. There's no bulge there. That's female. My piece of advice would be to try to do it out of the egg and try to kind of get past that sexing point right away. Because I do feel the longer you wait, if you wait until a month, if you wait until 2 months, it's going to become a little bit more challenging at that point until you get really familiar with kind of noticing the slight variations in color or waiting until they color up completely.
Do you notice any difference in behavior between the two sexes?
As they're young, not as much. I watch them and I will see, when they're less than a month and they're in the bins together, there will definitely be kind of males and females that are a little bit more dominant than the others. It's not uncommon to see a little tiny 2 or 3 week old baby kind of fire up on one of its clutch mates that's getting a little too close. Mm-hmm. But I've seen females do that as well as males. So it's definitely not, a trait that's indicative of sex. As they get older, there's something really sweet about female chameleons. I don't know if I'm just putting that on them myself, but I feel there's a sweetness to a lot of the females. They make wonderful pets. There's definitely, considerations that you have to think about when you choose to take on a female. But they're sweet. They're just kind of docile, whereas, my male chameleons will, are perfectly fine, being in their cage and doing their thing, whereas I don't know. It just might be me, but
no, I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah, I see that too.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad it's not just me. But with that said, there's also some very aggressive females that we have too. So it's, they tend to be sweet, but there's always a few out there that can just be as aggressive as any of our males can. And then we have very sweet male chameleons. So I think it's a toss-up of what you're going to get.
All right, Carolyn, let's go ahead and take a look at a number of the pictures that you sent me to, we'll practice a little bit. So let's look at hatchling number 1 and just describe what you see there that tells you what sex it is.
All right. So when I am looking at hatchling number 1, I'm looking for the cloaca, which is the opening at the base of their tail. And right after that, it's right after the cloaca, but towards the tip side of the tail, I see a very slight bulge underneath. The tail is a little thicker. And that would be kind of my indications that this would be a male.
Okay. All right, folks. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. What do you all think that one is? Carolyn has the answer. Carolyn, what do you see in picture number 2?
Picture number 2 is a picture of a female. And again, if you're looking at the very base of the tail, you're looking for that cloacal opening. And from there towards the tip, it's skinny. The tail is skinnier. There's no apparent bulge. And that would definitely show that it's female rather than male.
All right, folks, take a look at picture number 3. What do you think this is? Give you a second to think about that on your own. And then we come to Carolyn. Carolyn, what do you see in picture number 3?
So I see a male. This one definitely, I would say, is one of those that's a little more challenging. Again, the things that I would look for are the thickness of the tail at the base, and there's a very, very slight bulge at the base of that tail as well. Then I also know the picture's hard because I have the light behind it, so you can't really see the colors, but the slight color variations, he's a little bit more on the grayish side, which to me is a sign that helps me when I'm sexing as well. It's kind of like a third thing that I'll go to.
Okay, let's go on. This is getting fun. Let's go on to picture number 4.
All right, picture number 4 is definitely hands down female. I think it's pretty easy to see. I hope the listeners see the same thing that I do, but that cloacal opening, no bulge, and it's a very skinny tail.
All right, let's go on to number 5. What do you all think about number 5? Go ahead and put down your vote. And Carolyn, let us know.
All right, so number 5 is another male. This one is a nicer, I know the chameleon is a little blurry, but it's a nicer close-up picture of how thick that tail can be. It almost goes straight out from the opening there, and there's a definite bulge as well. Tiny bulge, but it's there.
Okay, now 6 and 7 I put together because they show a nice contrast. Give us a tour of 6 and 7.
All right, so number 6, I would say, is a male. You can see the cloacal opening, and it's just that little indent. It's kind of hard if you're not exactly familiar with chameleon, but those of you that are breeding will be. But that tail is a little thicker at the base. The bulge is a little bit harder to see, but it's definitely there. As we'll see in other examples, the female's tail will just go right up and out, where this one, there's just a little bit more bulk at the base there.
And you are talking about the little bit of a bulge that is on the tail side of the cloacal opening, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And within the wide range of clutches that you have, what do you notice? What variation do you notice as to what time, what age do males start to color up to the point where it's unmistakable?
So we've noticed differences in locality too.
Okay.
Our amblyopes are probably the locale that tend to color up the quickest in my experience. And I would say right around that 3-month mark, you're going to start seeing kind of those colors start to come in on, their undersides. They're kind of right in their shoulder area. I tend to see a lot of beautiful yellows start to pop through earlier on. As you get into like another locale of chameleon, our nosy bay tend to take a little bit longer. They tend to, I would say more towards the 3.5-month mark to the 4-month mark with nosy bay. They're famous for staying gray, for this beautiful silvery gray color for a long time. And then, turning that beautiful, the teals and the greens start to come in. But they definitely take a little bit longer. So if you're not sure, based on the tail, you might want to hold on to like a nosy bay a little bit longer just to see until those colors come in.
Okay.
As far as other locales, I would say in our experience, the biggest differences are from amblyopes to nosy bay. But we've had our ambanjas tend to start coloring up shortly after our amblyopes. We've had some other other localities that do the same, but the ambelobe are definitely our fastest ones to color up.
All right, Carolyn, I want to thank you so much for coming on and leading us through this tour of sexing panther chameleons. This was a lot of fun and very educational.
Thank you so much. I was really excited to be here, and I definitely am. I'm really thankful for the experience. So thanks to you.
Thank you for joining me here today. If you want more of the same, hit the subscribe and check out this other video.